Gonna dive into it again. We've got Daniel Lieberman. He wrote that book about trying to, what's the book called?
Exercised.
Exercised.
Yeah,
And
he does a clever thing with the word there. It's very like you got to be a college professor to think it's funny, but it's a good book. It's a good book.
No, I mean, all the myths you've been talking about, I found it super intriguing to hear the difference in, or his comparisons with dance and running. So explain a little bit how, if you hate running, which I too hate running long distances, maybe dancing's your thing. I don't know.
So weird fact, most of the reasons why we probably hate running, one is it's hard, and that sucks. But the other reason we probably hate running is because we do it wrong. And so all of the joints that hurt when we run is probably because we're running wrong.
Does he break down running form compared to the hunter-gatherers? I know that's like a big part of the book.
So he'll do a little bit of that. A lot more of that was done if you've heard of the book Born to Run. He was also a part of the paper that kind of inspired that book. And the idea being like there's a running form that's the right way to do it that would help alleviate many of our, especially very early injuries that come from running. And we can get really into the whole running thing because he's got a whole section on this. But the dancing phase is the question he asked was, these Terra Humera or these subsistence farmers, they're not going to go train for a marathon. That's not like we're making sure we have food. We're battening down the hatches for a bad winter. Like we are not wasting energy training for a marathon. That's not what we do. It makes no sense.
Right.
So how do they do it? Because once a year or multiple times a year, there are whole members of this culture that go out and run the equivalent of a marathon, like with zero training as far as our.
And you said it's to play some type of a game or something that they have a couple times a year. So
So and all it is they pick an endpoint and an endpoint, and they run back and forth between it as a team, and they kick a ball from one end to the other, and they do it over and over again, and they rack up miles, like a marathon's worth of miles.
And the question would be is how in the world, that's what he analyzed, right? How in the world could you do this?
Because, I mean, if you were to tell somebody right now today, I want you to go run a marathon, like absurd. There's no way you could do that.
I actually just had a conversation with a guy named Eladio, and he talked all about running distances. And he's like, the difference in a half marathon and a full marathon is massive walls that occur right around 20 miles. Just absolutely massive physical walls. And it's kind of funny, though, because you would think if you go through the collection of all the people that you know who could actually run a marathon, you'd probably say, I don't think anybody.
Maybe just the people that run. Like that would be it. It wouldn't be everybody. And the crazy part is we have this weird image of like these paleo folk or the Terra Humera that are in a couple of different books that like everybody in their culture runs this well. It's not true. Like there are really good runners in this culture, but they don't train for it. So how are they good?
Right.
And the weird part he comes up with, I mean, probably still to be tested, is he's like dancing. That's it. That's what happens. They dance, and because they dance, they run.
But, it's not your active dancing or your average dancing either, though,
no,
right?
I mean,
so you're doing like cultural thrusting. Style. I mean, they're hopping tons. Is that the kind of dancing we're talking about? What's in the book?
So when he goes through and he breaks down the kind of dancing that are happening, most dancing, so every culture that's ever existed in the world has dancing as a foundational part of their culture.
Right.
A lot of it is for storytelling. Some of it is for history taking. Some of it is for spirit warding. Like there's just a part of the culture that is dance related, and you do it around a fire and you do all that kind of stuff. And so he would go through, and almost every culture he had studied has like these marathons, the wrong word, but marathon style dance parties that go all night where these shaman and these people will dance to ward off the evil spirits, and they are dancing for hours at a time. So we're not talking like, you go to a wedding, which is, again, hours of dancing.
Right, and turbocharged with booze. I mean, wait, what?
Who said that?
What?
So, yeah, I mean, that's a great example for us. We still have dancing in our culture. We get together, we dance, we do all that stuff. But we're sitting down and going to get a drink and doing that kind of stuff. These folks that are doing it are doing a similar thing, except they keep going. Like,
so I wonder, was his analysis more of just the cardiovascular abilities that they have to have is continuous amount of time? Once again, I'll refer to Eladio. It was kind of interesting listening to a guy talk about different distances running, and it was never about the distance. It was always the time under tension in a sense.
Absolutely.
So it was how long can your body stay
upright,
not falling apart, basically. How long can you go? And everything was based on time. And it's kind of funny because if you're talking a 3-4 hour dance ritual or something along that nature, and then you're talking about a running long distances. Well, cardiovascular wise, their body's probably set to do this.
Body's doing the same thing. So
hopping from one foot to the other.
Assuming you have taught each other how to run, because it's important in your culture to be able to run for whatever reason.
Right.
Which most cultures, especially early on, that was a taught skill. The same as throwing, the same as hunting.
Right, had to.
We teach you to run. So if that's something that's happening, and you're dancing once a week to ward off the evil spirits in these all-night events where you're dancing like 3 to 8 hours, depending on the role of the dancer, well, now you've already got your cardio and you've learned to run. So now you're just pairing the two. And the kicker, which I thought was really clever, is he's like, most of the dancing in these cultures is jumping from one foot to the other foot at high rates and with gusto. And he goes, and that's all running is as far as your body is concerned.
Sure.
I jump from one foot to the other foot, and then I swing them past each other and do it again. And that's it. So he's like, dancing and running share the exact same body necessities, save some biomechanics, but the same body necessities. And so even though they're not training by doing running regimens or anything like that, they're training by doing cardio through dance multiple times a month and multiple times possibly a week. And they're also training running by just, that's a skill that I teach you.
Right.
I teach you how to drive as you turn 14 in America or 15 in America, depending on your state. I teach you how to fish if fishing is really important to me. And that's something that you have to learn how to do. I teach you how to run if I know how to do it and it's important to us. And in that culture, it is.
That's pretty cool. So the big takeaway would be, obviously, hey, if you hate running,
dance.
You could dance. It's
just
a thing.
dance.
I don't know if I'm going to be the just dancer.
I'll tell you what, right now, my wife, if you told her you don't have to run anymore, but if you wanted to participate in a 5K and a 10K, just make sure you dance every night for at least 2 hours. I think like she'd be on board.
Yeah,
like, yeah, that makes sense.
You should have her tested. Wouldn't that be so cool if she could run a half marathon? If she like twice a week could dance for 2.5 hours?
Like if you just put that in the regimen, like in fact, you're not allowed to run. You can only.
You're gonna walk in. She'll be in the living room from like 5 to 8, just dancing around like a fool.
What'll be worse is like I have no idea what the Tarahumara look like when they run. But have you ever seen those treadmill like yokels that jump on there and they like do dances while they treadmill?
Yeah.
What if that's really how they run? And that's all it is all he's really found out is people dance really goobery and they also run equally goobery.
So get out there and dance a little bit.
Just a touch.
Because it's, the same thing
great
as running.
cardio.
It does make a lot of sense. I mean, biomechanics, when you analyze them, they're moving from one foot to the other. It makes a whole lot of sense. But it is kind of funny that you've got a culture here that when you have a running community that has train for distance, you've got to run X amount of miles every single week. And then you take a culture like that where, some of these people would just bust out a marathon and have never done it.
That's all I do.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is it does actually match up to much of our common knowledge within the exercise community because we talk about cross-training all the time. You don't want to have overuse injuries from doing the same motion over and over again. Well, the best way to do it is continue to work on your cardio by doing a different motion.
Right.
That's why a lot of people are starting to add like rowing into their workouts because rowing is a relatively unique exercise that's very cardio intensive, but it's not going to end up busting up your joints or doing different things that might otherwise stress a leg in a way that running will if that's what you're actually training for.
Sure. Great book. What is
Awesome
it again?
Book. It's Exercise. There's a whole subtitle to it that I will absolutely get wrong if I said it right now, but we can put it down in the show notes.
Yeah. Check it out. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of different exercise myths that he breaks down. We might do a couple more.